the 27th of September, a Saturday, and I'm reading The Comedians. It's a book by Greene, published 1966, and I finished the previous chapter, which was 5, Roman 5, and it says now part 2, chapter 1, Roman 1. I thought I was already in part 2, but I wasn't. Never mind. Part 2, chapter 1, Roman 1. Jones fell from view for a while as completely as the body of the Secretary for Social Welfare. No one ever learned what was done with his corpse, though the presidential candidate made more than one attempt to discover. He penetrated to the bureau of the new secretary, where he was received with celerity and politeness. Petit Pierre had done his best to spread his fame as Truman's opponent, and the minister had heard of Truman. He was a small fat man who wore, for some reason, a fraternity pin, and his teeth were very big and white and separate like tombstones designed for a much larger cemetery. A curious smell crossed his desk as though one grave had stayed open. I accompanied Mr. Smith in case a translator were needed, but the new minister spoke good English, with a slight twang which went some way to support the fraternity pin. I learned later that he had served for a while as the small boy at the American embassy. It might have been a rare example of merit rising if he had not served an interim period in a Tonton Macoute, where he had been a special assistant to Colonel Garcia, known as Fat Garcia. Mr. Smith excused the fact that his letter of introduction was addressed to Dr. Philippot. Poor Philippot, the minister said, and I wondered whether at last we were to receive the official version of his end. What happened to him? Mr. Smith asked with admirable directness. We will probably never know. He was a strange, moody man, and I must confess to you, Professor, his accounts were not in good order. There was the matter of a water pump in Desay Street. Are you suggesting he killed himself? I had underrated Mr. Smith. In a good cause he could show cunning, and now he played his cards close to his chest. Perhaps he had been the victim of the people's vengeance. We Haitians have a tradition of removing a tyrant in our own way, Professor. Was Dr. Philippot a tyrant? The people in Desay Street were sadly deceived about their water. So the pump will be set working now, I asked. It will be one of my first projects. He waved his hand at the files on the shelves behind him, but as you see, I have many cares. I noticed that the steel grips on many of his cares had been rusted by a long succession of rainy seasons. A care was not quickly disposed of. Mr. Smith came smartly back at him. So, Dr. Philippot is still missing? In your war communiques, you used to put it, missing, believed, killed, as your war communique used to put it, missing, believed, killed. But I attended his funeral, Mr. Smith said. His what? His funeral. I watched the minister. He showed no embarrassment. He gave a short bark, which was meant to be a laugh. I was reminded of a French bulldog, and said, there was no funeral. It was interrupted. You cannot imagine, Professor, the unscrupulous propaganda put about by our opponents. I'm not a professor, and I saw the coffin with my own eyes. The coffin was filled with stones, Professor. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. Stones? Bricks, to be exact, brought from Duvalier, where we are constructing our beautiful new city. Stolen bricks. I would like to show you Duvalier one morning when you're free. It is our answer to Brasilia, But his wife was there. Poor woman. She was used, I hope, innocently by unscrupulous men. The morticians have been arrested. I gave him full marks for readiness and imagination. Mr. Smith was temporarily silenced. When are they to be tried? I asked. The inquiries will take some time. The plot has many ramifications. Then it is not true what the people think, that the body of Dr. Philippot is in the palace, working as a zombie? All that is voodoo stuff, Mr. Brown. Luckily, our president has rid the country of voodoo. Then he has done more than the Jesuits could do. Mr. Smith broke in with impatience. He had done his best in the cause of Dr. Philippot, and now it was his mission which demanded full attention. He was anxious not to antagonize the minister with such irrelevancies as zombies and voodoo. The minister listened to him with great courtesy, doodling at the same time with a pencil. Perhaps it was not a sign of inattention, for I noticed the doodle took the form of innumerable percentage marks and crosses. So far as I could see, there were no minus signs. Mr. Smith spoke of a building which could contain a restaurant, kitchen, a library, and a lecture hall. If possible, there should be enough room for extensions. Even a theatre and cinema might be possible. One day, already, his organization could supply documentary films, and he hoped that soon, given the opportunities for production, there might arise a school of vegetarian dramatists. In the meanwhile, he said, we can always fall back on Bernard Shaw. It is a great project, the minister said. Mr. Smith had been in the Republic a week now. He had seen the kidnapping of Dr. Philippot's body. I had driven him through the worst of the shanty town. That morning he had insisted, against my advice, in going to the post office himself to buy stamps. I had lost him momentarily in the crowd, and when I found him again, he had not been able to approach a foot towards the guichet. 2 one-armed men and 3 one-legged men hemmed him round. 2 were trying to sell him dirty old envelopes containing out-of-date Haitian postage stamps. The other were more frankly begging. A man without legs at all had installed himself between his knees and removed his shoelaces preparatory to cleaning his shoes. Others, seeing a crowd collected, were fighting to join it. A young fellow, with a hole where his nose should have been, lowered his head and tried to ram his way through towards the attraction at the centre. A man with no hands raised his pink polished stumps over the heads of the crowd to exhibit his infirmity to the foreigner. It was a typical scene in the post office, except that foreigners were rare nowadays. I had to fight my way to reach him, and once my hand encountered a stiff, inhuman stump, like a piece of hard rubber. I forced it on one side, and I felt revolted by myself, as though I were rejecting misery. The thought even came to me, what would the fathers of the visitation have said to me? So deeply embedded are the disciplines and myths of childhood. It took me 5 minutes to get Mr. Smith clear, and he had lost his shoelaces. We had to replace them as hammets before we called on the Secretary for Social Security, for Social Welfare. Mr. Smith said to the minister, the centre, of course, would not be run at a profit, but I calculate we ought to give employment to a librarian, secretary, accountant, cook, waiters, and eventually, of course, the cinema usherettes. At least 20 people. The film shows would be educational and free of charge. As for the theatre, well, we mustn't look too far ahead. All vegetarian products would be supplied at cost price, and the literature for the library would be gratis. I listened to him in astonishment. The dream was intact. Reality could not touch him. Even the scene in the post office had not sullied his vision. The Haitian freed from acidity, poverty and passion would soon be bent happily over their nut cutlets. This new city of yours, Duvalier, Mr. Smith said, might provide an admirable situation. I'm not an opponent of modern architecture. Not at all. New ideas need new shapes, and what I want to bring to your republic is a new idea. It might be arranged, the minister said. There are sites available. He was making a whole row of little crosses on his sheet, all plus signs. You have plenty of funds, I'm sure. I thought a mutual project with the government. Of course you realize, Mr. Smith, we are not a socialist state. We believe in free enterprise. The building would have to be put up to tender. Fair enough. Of course, the government would make the final decision between the tenders. It is not a mere matter of the lowest bid. There are the amenities of Duvalier to be considered, and of course, questions of sanitation are of first importance. For that reason, I think the project might well come in the first place under the Ministry for Social Welfare. Fine, Mr. Smith said. Then I would be dealing with you. Later, of course, we would have to have discussions with the Treasury, and the customs imports, of course, are the responsibility of the customs. Surely there are no duties here on food. Films, educational films. Oh well, let us talk about all that later. There is first the question of the site and its cost. Don't you think the government might be inclined to contribute the site in view of our investment in labour? I guess land here doesn't fetch a high price anyway. The land belongs to the people, not the government, Mr. Smith, the minister said with gentle reproof. All the same, you will find nothing is impossible in modern Haiti. I would myself suggest, if my opinion is asked, a contribution for the site equivalent to the cost of construction. But that's absurd, Mr. Smith said. The two costs bear no relation. Returnable, of course, on completion of the work. So you mean the site would be free? Quite free. Then I don't see the point of the contribution. To protect the workers, Mr. Smith. Many foreign projects have come suddenly to an end, and the worker, on payday, has found nothing in his envelope. A tragic thing for a poor family. We still have many poor families in Haiti. Perhaps a bank guarantee? Cash is a better notion, Mr. Smith. The gourd has remained stable for a generation, but there are pressures on the dollar. I would have to write home to my committee, I doubt. Write home, Mr. Smith, and say that the government welcomes all progressive projects and will do it all it can. He rose from behind his desk to signify that the interview was at an end, and his wide, toothy smile showed that he expected it to be beneficial to all parties. He even put his arm around Mr. Smith's shoulders to demonstrate that they were partners in the great work of progress. And the site? You will have a great choice of sites, Mr. Smith. Perhaps close to the cathedral or the college or the theatre. Anything which does not conflict with the amenities of Duvalier. Such a beautiful city. You will see. I will show it to you myself. Tomorrow I'm very busy. So many deputations, but know how it is in a democracy. But Thursday, in the car, Mr. Smith said, he seemed interested all right. I would be careful about that contribution. It's returnable, only when the building's completed. His story about the bricks in the coffin, do you suppose there's something in that? No. After all, Mr. Smith said, none of us have actually seen Dr. Philippot's body. One mustn't judge hastily. So this is the end of Roman 1, and I read Roman 2 soon.